the monks chanted what's called the victory protection chant, which is the aspirations for victory over all that is dukkha, that you have gone for from the lay life into the homeless life. As you stated, it's the Buddha compares it like the bright and shiny conch shell. The household life is cramped and dusty and confused, and now you've taken up the life of freedom, but life which is disentangling, leading to disenchantment with the world, leading to dispassion, leading to disengagement with all that is confusing, troublesome, burdensome, painful and suffering. And that aspiration is a noble aspiration, an aspiration which the Buddha praised in the highest. It is a rising up to a higher status, the status of someone keeping the 8 precepts. And that involves not only giving up the external attachments to the world, the busyness of job, work, family, those responsibilities that to do with the happiness of essential pleasures. We are giving that up because we're aiming for the happiness of the renunciate life, the happiness of disengagement, the happiness of putting aside, putting down, the happiness of nekkakamma, abandoning, being freed of, burdensome free. And when we put things down, we feel light. And so this is an important day for you in your quest for liberation, a day to remember that on this day you are on your Bodhisattva day going forth into the community of renunciates, into the community of people who also have, like you, seen the danger of life and death. And just the other day I was speaking with Ajahn Kemanando, and he was saying that when he was visiting his very sick mother who was dying at the time, she was being treated in an old people's home, and there was a nurse there, a relatively young nurse, who was pregnant, and she was treating her mother. And many of the visitors were all very enthusiastic about this young woman being pregnant and ready to give birth. And right next to the bed was standing this nurse, but in the bed was this old lady who was on her deathbed and in the last throes of life. And people were very joyous and happiness at the idea of birth, but hadn't put the 2 and 2 together, as Ajahn Kema said, that leads to this ultimate decline of the body, aging of the body, disintegration of the body, breaking up, death, sickness, and final decomposition of this body back to its 4 elements, back to nature. And they hadn't seen that this birth process, this pregnancy, is going to lead to death. But that's the wisdom of the Buddha, is that he knows cause and he knows effect. He knows what leads and is a cause for suffering, but he also knows what leads and is a cause for liberation and freedom from suffering. And one of the causes for the liberation and freedom from suffering, having been born, is the development of the Noble Eightfold Path. And one of the aspects of that Noble Eightfold Path is having the fundamental aspect of the beginning of that path is right view, the view that there is dukkha, there is a cause for dukkha, there is liberation from dukkha, and there is the Noble Eightfold Path which leads to that liberation of dukkha. And then to be motivated and to aspire to lead that Noble Eightfold Path in all its aspects to the completion of the Noble Eightfold Path, to the aspiration of freedom and release from all suffering, to make that Noble Eightfold Path as complete as possible in this very life. And of course, one of the foundation stones is Sila, Samadhi and Panya. And Sila is these 8 precepts that you have taken on. That is the certain training of the body and speech, so that one develops the body and speech of not only just a good person, the 5 precepts, but now you're taking on the training of body and speech of a samana or a renunciate. So you're not only taking on complete harmlessness of not intentionally killing and not taking anything that's not given, but also the brahmacharya. The brahmacharya is to disengage of all raga, any pleasures seeking from the related to the body or sexual pleasure. One's disbanding and abandoning that inclination to turn away towards what is hot, what burns, to what is cooling, and what leads to release, to dispassion, not to passion. And so taking the training of brahmacharya is really one of the fundamental principles of the holy life. And that means to not be engaged in even sexual activity with oneself in any way, and to disengage with train to disengage with thoughts in the mind, not to mention speech, of course, about such things. And so as we disengage from that, then we're developing a way of training ourselves to see the danger, see the negative consequences of anything to do with sexual activity. And now as someone who's training in the brahmacharya, then you'll find that, especially in Thailand, your relationship with women in the monastery has to change in terms of they will expect you to keep your distance, they'll expect you to not hand things directly to them, they'll expect you to not to get too close, and to have manners and behaviors of someone who's living the holy life as a monk. They see you not as just an anagarika, but they see you as someone training to become a bhikkhu. And so they have now expectations, very high expectations of the way you walk, the way you sit, your deportment, your mannerisms, your etiquette, and the way you carry yourself is to be the manner of someone who's a peaceful one. That is a samana, someone who is leading towards that training and developing oneself in those forms, that form of behavior and activity that is appropriate for a samana, and to not develop those forms of body and speech which are inappropriate for the samana life. And then you have the other, obviously, the trainings of, right speech. And then for right speech now also needs to be more refined. So it's disengaging in any speech which is to do with worldly speech, the speech that a normal layperson would get engaged into politics, into worldly thoughts and worldly conversations and worldly discussions that are not based on the path, not based on Sila, Samadhi, Panya, not based on liberation, not for the talking little, for disengaging, for dispassion, for liberation. And of course, the not taking drugs and intoxicants, that's a general rule, of course. But the next one is, of course, the Vikarlaya, which is to not taking food after dawn, before dawn, and only after dawn and before noon. And of course, we keep it to the one meal a day as a way of training in the Tudonga tradition. So having the meal just at the one time together here in the hall, unless of course one's very sick and needs special permission, then there's an occasion for needing treatment, then we will consider that in each case. But then it's done together, completed, and then it's over and done with for the day. And that purpose of only eating one meal a day is for simplicity, to not be having to be concerned with food and digestion and interaction with that whole sense pleasure, but just taking food for the benefit of removing hunger from the body, sustaining the body according to its four elements in balance, and overcoming the discomfort, but then leading to reasonable health for the practice of the holy life. But then not eating to the point where discomfort arises from overeating. So knowing the right amount and the balance in consumption of food, drink, and those things that are due with sustaining the body in a reasonable state of health, so that one does not become burden to yourself and burden to others, but can sustain the practice of the holy life in a reasonably healthy way, so that practice continues without dukkha vedana. And then, of course, we have the rule of not adorning the body. That's fairly easy for men, but also to then go to entertainments and distractions which take the mind away from mindfulness training, samadhi, and wisdom training. And then to not lie on beds which are high luxurious, but unless of course one is sick, one needs special care. If one takes a bedding which is, as we do, try to keep it as simple for your needs. That's we keep it simple on the floor, and try and after you've laid down, the purpose of that rule is so one develops wakefulness. One is not indulging in sleep, and so the principle of it is to sleep little, and to try and develop alertness, brightness, sharpness of mind, wakefulness, so that one is mindful, aware, and not indulgent, drowsy, and confused. And that wakefulness means to be alert, to be sharp, to be observant, and to watch out for dangers, and not indulge in the sort of pleasures of the body and indulging in just sleep and drowsiness. Those 8 precepts, which are the fundamental training of someone leading the holy life, and the brahmacharya, is something that the Buddha laid down as the ways of measuring a sammana, a true sammana, someone going towards liberation and the pathway to liberation. So having undertaken that training and keeping that, sustaining it, then obviously then there's the whole training of mindfulness and meditation. And mindfulness, that training is in everything we do. We try to do as a way of treating that task or that work or that activity, that project, as a way of developing skill, awareness, alertness, mindfulness in the present moment, in the activity that's done, and using it as a way of cultivating meditation. cultivating the mind, awareness of the body, awareness of feeling, awareness of the mind, awareness of Dhammas in that activity. So whether even it's a mundane activity, it's wiping something down, setting up the hall in the morning, to do it quietly, neatly, quickly and well, and wholeheartedly. Ajahn Chah would say, to do things with your whole heart, put it in, your heart into something, do it 100%, and then you tend to do it well, you tend to be able to be alert on that activity, your mind, keeping your mind there, rather than doing things lackadaisical or slap happy, as they say, or kind of slapdash, and trying to get it over and done with, just to kind of complete the task. That's not the attitude that we develop. The attitude is to try and use the task for developing us, rather than having the task use us. So whatever we do, whether it's on the arms round, to walk mindfully and peacefully, quietly, not get distracted, but use it as a walking meditation into the village, to do the arms round and then come back and then mindfully set up for the meal, quickly, quietly and well. From now on we'll have you come and sit and have the meal in the hall here. We'll arrange that and sit with the end of the monks. You sit, make your own separate seat, because you're sitting on a different level to the Sangha, but then you sit on your sitting cloth and do things with the Sangha, come back and eat here. It's part of the training that you're taking the food with the mindfulness and awareness, and taking even the meal as part of the meditation activity, chewing the food, swallowing the food, to be aware of it. How many mouthfuls do I eat in the day? How many times do I chew this mouthful? So that one is concentrating and aware on that activity as one does it, and seeing that the consumption of food is a meditation, that this is unpleasant, this is a burden. This food is, before it goes into our mouth, looks reasonably attractive, but as soon as it goes into our mouth and is, has saliva on it, is chewed up, it becomes repulsive and disgusting, and if it comes out of our mouth, no one wants to put it into their mouths. We don't even want to put it back into our mouths. It is repulsive, it's disgusting. And seeing the repulsiveness of food is one of the meditation subjects, so that we don't get indulgent in that activity of lost in the pleasures of the taste and delighting in what we want. And that's one of the reasons that we eat in the bowl. It's a Tidongha practice. Some people even mix their food all together, so that they're not sort of picking and choosing, but it is just a mass of 4 elements, which is there to sustain the body. And it's not just, I want this, I like that, I'll eat this before I'll eat that. It's for the purpose of seeing this as 4 elements for sustaining this physical body, for the perpetuation of life and the overcoming of dukkha vedana. So when we're taking the meal, or then cleaning up afterwards and going back to our kuti, we sweep around the kuti, put our things away neatly, wipe the kuti down, and then put our robes and things in the right place, neatly and tidily, and then going on to the walking meditation path and walking up and down. They're doing walking meditation, sitting and walking during the day, especially in the hot weather. It's very good to do a lot of walking meditation, and then using that for development of mindfulness, keeping your mind on your meditation subject, whether it's Buddha or the breath or a supa, contemplation of the loathsome aspects of the body, or to do maranasati, death meditation, so that we're developing mindfulness. The mind becomes bright, alert and wakeful in all postures. And then when it comes to 3 o'clock, to grab the broom and come out and sweep the monastery, using that as a meditation, How do you move your body? How much weight do you put on the head of the broom? How do you sweep? Do you sweep in a relaxed, easy motion, or is it stressful and painful? To feel the movement of the body when sweeping, so that you're aware of kaya anusati, the awareness of movement of the body, the feelings in the body, of the sensation of the body moving. Now this obviously, the movement of the body is related to feelings as well, vedana anusati, but they interactive. Keep the awareness on the actual movements of the body as it moves, as you're sweeping and walking through around the monastery. Don't just walk with the mind in thought, distracted in mental activity, but try and bring the mind back to the body as it's moving or keeping still. And then we do the activity, take the nampana quickly, quietly, and well, clean up afterwards, and then again after the chores activity, having a shower, quickly, quietly, and well, and then going back, cleaning everything, going back to sitting and walking in the evenings, doing some chanting, studying some suttas. If one's drowsy, then maybe that's a time to know your biological clock. When are you bright? When you're alert? When are you drowsy? Then do some reading of some suttas, or listening to a Dhamma talk by a Krupa Acharya, and sit and walk further, at least till say 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or even later. Some people find that they can meditate very well late in the night, and then rest mindfully, lay down with a determination. As soon as I am aware, I'll get up, and then when your alarm goes off or you wake up, determine, jump out of bed, sit up, do sitting and walking again, do morning chanting till it's time to come to the hall. So that we're setting up a routine in the day for us, for doing our activities. How many hours a day are we meditating? How many hours a day are we doing walking meditation? How many hours are we doing sitting meditation? How much do I eat? What sort of foods make me sleepy? What sort of foods cause sensuality to arise? What sort of drinks or sort of things that I consume make an effect on the mind towards, say, sensual pleasures or to aversion or whatever. Become aware of that and cut out those things that lead to unwholesome states of mind, and develop those things that lead to wholesome states of mind. And so if you have any doubts or queries about activities, don't be afraid to ask the Sangha. The Sangha is here to help all yourself and anyone new in the monastery. But if people point things out to you, don't feel like people are purposely trying to find fault with you as a person. We have a responsibility, each and every monk, is to help you and guide you, instruct you. And in the beginning, of course, one's new and one is learning and one will make mistakes. Because one makes mistakes doesn't mean that one's wrong or bad. It's just that that's maybe not the way it's done, or not the way it's done here. And so people will point that out with the purpose of kindness, with the purpose of compassion, with the intention of compassion, so that you will learn and be pointed out in the way of Dhamma Vinaya and the Buddha's way of training. So in this period of time, it's a way of time for learning, also the rules of monastics, so that if you go on to become a bhikkhu, then you know the monastic training and the monastic rules. And if you have any queries or questions on meditation or mindfulness training, then you can ask myself or Ajahn Kimanando as well. Very helpful, happy to help you in any way we can. And that's our responsibility, our duty is to give you assistance and encouragement and support on the holy life. For the purpose, as we chanted in the Jayanto, is so that you conquer and overcome all difficulties, dangers, and hindrances on the in the holy life, so that you conquer them. You have victory over all them, victory over Mara, and victory over all difficulties and defilements.